Hello, everyone. Welcome to Patriots 3 Life, Liberty, Pursuit of Happiness. And here's your hosts, Tim and Matt. How you doing tonight, Matt?
Very good, sir. Very good.
Excellent, excellent. So tonight we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court. Are they fearful of taking on Second Amendment cases? Is it a failure to, uphold the Constitution in such a way? So I want to give the reminders to the audience that we are the general media. So we got to get out there and share, follow the content that we find fit, true, and honest, and make it happen. Just share the heck out of these shows. So you can find this specific show at Tim Holliday TV. That's TimHollidayTV. TV. No spaces. You can find it on Rumble, YouTube, Spotify, iHeart, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Twitch TV. So, yeah, just be part of the media and get out there and share. And so yeah, let's go ahead and continue here.
Let's do this.
So just before we're talking a little bit about the whole Hollywood scene as far as awards and such. It's crazy on how some things are just done for that little prize at the end. And that little prize isn't really worth it.
DEI in practice.
Right. Absolutely ridiculous.
But it gets old. And it just beats down what we were talking about yesterday, last week. It just you got to put out content that people like and people will enjoy and absorb, and not stop checking boxes.
Yeah. So speaking about checking boxes, the Supreme Court taking on 2A cases. What's your thoughts on this here, Matt?
We thought that we would get, when Trump got his 3 picks, we got a 3 majority, conservative majority. We thought we were set. We can stack cases in front of them. We can finally get things done, because one thing that goes along with the Supreme Court, in order to get to the Supreme Court, you have to run through the whole, circuit court process and, state Supreme Court process, all that stuff first. And the Democrats for the last 15 to 20 years have played a very, very effective game. When they pass these laws they know are unconstitutional, they know for a fact they're going to get litigated. The average federal circuit court judge today has an average of 1,000 cases in front of them. 1,000. So we all wonder why things aren't getting heard or overheard or anything like that. They're backlogged. The federal court backlog is outrageous. But then when it comes to the Supreme Court, like was mentioned, hey, we finally got the conservative majority, not like a it's a 6-3. You got to be hard pressed to lose.
Yeah.
And when they first, the first monumental case, not a Second Amendment case, the first monumental case was the abortion case. And that came out of nowhere. It's like, it's overturned Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
And that wasn't, the way I look at it, that was not a victory for the pro-life movement. That was a victory for the Constitution and the 10th Amendment. That's a states' right. It should have always been that way.
Yeah.
And it was returned to the states, as it should have been.
Right.
However, that, I believe, deep down, is the main reason why the Supreme Court is very hesitant to hear Second Amendment cases, especially landmark Second Amendment cases. Because right now they have 5 cases stacked in front of them. And they're all assault weapon ban and magazine capacity ban.
Wow.
All 5.
Wow.
2 of them are from California.
Yeah.
And what I believe is the pushback that court got for Roe v. Wade, for overturning Roe v. Wade, was so fierce that it literally scared. And I can't say that I don't blame them, because when you have mobs of angry leftists at your house, threatening your lives, threatening your family's lives, I can understand the fear that they have.
Yeah.
But I will say that if you're that scared, you need to have a conversation and step down. If you're
Yes.
that scared, then you need to step down because you are a right delayed is a right denied.
Yeah.
And you are delaying two landmark cases that would reestablish a huge chunk of our Second Amendment back
Yeah.
to the people. And again, I believe that they're scared because if they hear these cases, they're going to have a conservative majority who are very friendly to the Second Amendment, especially when it comes to Alito and Thomas.
Yeah.
They're very friendly to the Second Amendment. They've written that in their dissents before.
Yeah.
I find it very hard to believe that any of these cases, if they decide to hear them, will not go our way.
Yeah.
And again, if they decide, for example, they hear an assault weapons case, and like, yeah, no, assault weapons are absolutely covered by the Constitution. As a matter of fact, assault weapons is a term that was created by the Democrats in the late '80s. It's not even a real thing. There's no such thing. But for the sake of this argument, sake of this debate, yeah, assault weapons are completely constitutional. They're completely legal. Any ban is unconstitutional. Do you
Well,
realize how many guns are going to be hiding?
yeah. Now, didn't California recently pass a law about no Glocks allowed in the state?
Yeah. If you ask any Democrat, it's not a Glock ban. It just bans guns that are easily converted into machine guns, quote unquote. It's a Glock ban. It was aimed at Glocks because of a famous Glock and everything like that.
Yeah.
The thing that I think California doesn't understand this, but also understands it. It's kind of a mixed argument. They don't understand the power of private industry. That if you ban something, somebody's going to create a loophole. And the classic example of this, when it comes to California, is their original assault weapons ban.
Yeah.
Originally, it was banned by feature alone, or I'm sorry, it was uh, brand brand name, so Colt AR-15 and features. It had to have like out of the 10 evil features, if it had more than like 3 or 4, it was an assault weapon, right?
Okay.
So, okay, the first response is, all right, we're going to start making aftermarket, or not aftermarket, but, off-brand AR-15s, and we're only going to have this many evil features. And one of the main evil feature was a suppressor or a muzzle brake. So what did they do? They just removed it. All right, it's a featureless rifle. Then they're
Yeah.
like, okay, we're going to ban all the features, and you can't have a detachable magazine. It has to be removed by a tool. Then in come the bullet button. I'm using a tool. It's tool. So then they're like, okay, fine, you can't. Now you have to register the bullet button rifles as an assault rifle. Then you can keep them. Now it's the fin grip. The
Okay.
pistol grip
Yeah.
fin grip. So it's like they don't understand private industry because the minute that you pass these laws, private industry is going to create create a loophole. Almost slipped there. I said like 3/4 of it, but I caught it.
Yeah. Don't
um,
worry. I'll still check the box.
um, I totally lost my train of thought, but you get my point.
Yeah. You know what, Matt? If you fucking cuss, I don't care. As long as we don't make this the Up Bomb show, we're
Yeah,
cool.
there you go. There you go. I'm trying to be good, but yeah.
I know.
So
I appreciate that.
it's it's very frustrating because patriots like you and I and so many millions of other patriots around the country, we cherish our Second Amendment. I have I can honestly say that when I knew I was going to join the military when I was 4 years old.
Yeah.
Ever since I can remember, I knew I was going to join the military. When I actually joined the military, I joined for, in my opinion, what I consider the right reason.
Yeah.
And my right reason was I wanted to serve my country to pay back the debt that I owe for the rights that I have. So I
Well,
want to serve my country to, like, it sounds cliche, but I did it, for like, the Starship Troopers, like I want to be a citizen, that
Yeah.
I did it for that exact reason. I wanted to be a member of society who actually paid the price for my rights.
Yeah.
So I fought and I bled for the flag, and I killed the flag, and I lost brothers for that flag and that Constitution, and I cherish the rights that it guarantees me. And to see them trampled and ignored by left and the right is infuriating to me.
I completely understand what you're saying. It's very frustrating when you see something like that. People not standing to, the Pledge of Allegiance, or respecting somebody who's been, a veteran. They've been through a lot. People don't realize everything that a veteran's been through.
Yeah.
To my knowledge,
And I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal. I'm not trying to, say that I'm better than anybody else. That's not what I'm saying. And
Right.
I'm not better than anybody else. I'm just an average guy. Didn't do anything special.
Yeah.
But I'm constantly, shouting about and constantly, critiquing the right about is like, you guys need to live up on your promises. The conservative majority on the Supreme Court, you guys need to grow a spine in these cases. Settle this for good. And I'll be very clear from this. If they hear those cases and they side against my belief, I'll respect their decision. Just make a decision, one way or the other. Settle the argument, settle the debate.
Right.
That's your job.
But yeah, it's definitely an overdrawn debate when it comes to a lot of things when it comes to the Constitution. We finally heard something, as we mentioned earlier, about the Roe v. Wade, and actually not helping or taking away anything except for giving it back to the right of the state, which is what the Constitution is.
Right.
I mean, look, I've been looking for a video while we're talking here.
That argument gets lost on the left, and that's where the left and even sometimes the right, when it comes to that argument specifically, and this is where I think, that big red wave that we were expecting in Trump's first term for the midterms, we were expecting some, huge red wave. We were writing success and everything like that. And the Roe v. Wade decision came out, and they appropriately said needs to go back to the states. States need to decide on their own. And Lindsey Graham, that moron, that dude immediately introduces federal legislation to ban abortion. I'm like, dude, abortion is not the Constitution. Healthcare is not the Constitution.
Nope.
Stop trying to federalize it. It's the same argument with Obamacare. They ran Republicans like, we need to repeal and replace. No, you need to repeal. Just repeal and make it very clear that healthcare is not the Constitution. That is a states' rights issue.
So when it comes to healthcare in general, I mean, the Obamacare, forcing people to pay for something put up by the government.
Yeah. And that's a state's issue. If you want to do it and Romney should when that debate question came up between Romney and Romney, when he's like, oh, well, you set up the same kind of system in your home state of Massachusetts. He should have responded with, yeah, and it was a massive failure too. That's all he should have said. Massive failure. That ends the debate right there.
Yeah, and just leave it alone. So I'm looking for in my opinion, it's a funny video. Hopefully I can find it so we can play it for you here to the audience. And
which one are you looking for?
Oh, I'm looking for this is an assault club. This is a regular golf club.
Oh, yeah. I whenever a liberal politician goes like, we need to ban assault weapons, my response is we need to ban assault politicians too.
Yeah.
Because you're assaulting my right.
Anyways, most anything can be made as an assault. This is an assault bottle of water. If I start beating somebody
Yeah.
with it, yeah, that's when the assault happens.
It's assault is an action. It's not a noun. It's an action. It's a verb or
Correct.
I'm not an English major, so don't butcher me in the comments, but you get what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
you, yeah, anything can be an assault weapon.
Right.
Like perfect example. When I was on the sheriff's department, we were taught anything can be used as a weapon. Your pen, your
Yes.
pencil, anything. If your life is on the line, do what you have to do to defend yourself.
Right.
And yeah, so anything can become a weapon at that point.
Yeah. This is a TV remote control. Now this is an assault TV remote control.
Yeah.
You
It'll
know,
be death by 1,000 cuts, but you're still gonna die.
exactly. Watch out for sharp plastic.
Yeah. So again, going back to our topic at hand, though, it is incumbent on the Supreme Court to hear these cases and settle what has been driving this country apart
Yeah.
for the better part of 30 years, and
Yeah.
just settle it one way or the other. Just settle it,
So it's
because it meets all the criteria to be heard. There's massive disagreement between the circuit courts.
yeah.
They're not aligned. It's a dead even split, or one way or the other. So you have to it is your duty and responsibility to hear these cases, and
Yeah.
just for the love of God, decide one way or the other.
Absolutely. I mean, and don't blame the object, blame the person behind the object.
Yeah. Another perfect argument. You cannot blame an inanimate object for the action there's no such thing as gun deaths. There is deaths by firearms, or death caused by an individual with a firearm. Firearm is just a tool. It's the same way a bat is a tool. And if you look at the FBI statistics when it comes to gun crime and everything like that, they break it down.
Yeah.
Rifles equate bolt action, lever, semi-auto. All rifles account for less than, I believe, 2% of all crime caused by, or all deaths caused by, people with guns. The
So
overwhelming majority of
there's more automobile deaths than there are deaths from
yeah,
rifles.
there. I think so. Roughly last year, I believe we had rounded off about 40,000 deaths by firearms, whereas traffic accidents like DUIs, I think it's roughly like $60,000. Medical malpractice kills over 300,000 Americans a year. You don't hear us talking about banning doctors, do you?
Nope.
And most doctors are still doctors. They're still surgeons. They are still on the job. So I think we're concentrating on the wrong thing.
Right. Again, it's the action.
Furthermore, yeah, I will say this, and this is what Charlie Kirk got killed for, and he was right. Everybody likes to say that, like, oh, Charlie Kirk died from a gun. He just joins the infamous, like, before he was shot. I don't think he was that event that he said it. I think it was just before this one, but he said it perfectly. We are a free country, and we have our civil liberties.
Yeah.
However, all of our freedoms come at a cost. And you have to ask yourself, is the cost too much, or is it acceptable to you? Now, when it comes to guns and people dying, you know, from a firearm, well, I'm using that argument.
Yeah.
You have to ask yourself, all deaths are tragic. All of them, every single one. Even officer involved shootings and stuff like that. All deaths are tragic. However, Are you saying that over 350, 360 million Americans, at least half of those are gun owners, at least half. Are you saying that their rights are invalidated because of 40,000 people dying? I think that price is worth it. It would be different if we had a couple million people dying every year from gun. We we can have that discussion, because at that point, hey, you know what? I don't think that price is worth the Second Amendment. You can have that argument, but we'll never get there.
Right.
And another reason why we have the Second Amendment isn't just to protect ourselves from a tyrannical government. It actually deters foreign actors. The
Yes.
perfect case was World War II. One of the main reasons that the Japanese did not invade America was because they knew we all had guns, and
Behind
everywhere
every
would be a
blade of
battlefield.
grass. Yeah.
Exactly. So, it has several uses. We should never take that away.
Well, I want to play a quick little video here. This is actually a police officer talking to a truck driver, I believe over in the state of Texas. And this is another example why having a sidearm is really important.
I'm sitting here in Houston at, this is Channelview or Baytown?
This is Baytown.
This is Baytown, Texas. And this officer here is just checking in the back of my trailer for some vandals. And this is what he told me I need, or this is what he said I need in Texas when I'm at a truck stop.
Here in Texas, at this location, PD and myself would recommend that you have your gun on you. So if anyone tries to steal off of your truck or your trailer, you shoot them.
And because this is considered
your home. Here in Texas, you are protecting your home and your belongings that go to your home. So anyone that's trying to, present themselves as a threat, shoot them down.
Right on. I wish I had a gun with me. Right on. Thank you, officer.
You're so welcome.
Have a great night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
So again, this goes with the practice. You definitely have to practice with your sidearm. You can't just be like shooting at somebody and there's a crowd behind them. That's a cause
Yeah,
of
because
more harm than.
What are your firearm safety rules? What are your firearm safety rules? To your target and its background.
Yeah.
You can't just open up on some dude and not consider what's behind that dude.
Right.
Is there a group of people saying like so a couple things that we can discuss is, yes, you have a right to carry a firearm. You have a right to carry concealed firearm. There are I apologize, I didn't do my research prior to this, but I think there's roughly 20 plus states with constitutional carry. And because of Bruin, every state is now a shall issue state. It's not a may, it's a shall. Now, states like California, Hawaii, they're making it, you got to jump through hoops and pay a buttload of money to get it, but I digress.
Yeah.
So yes, you have the right to carry a firearm, but you also have the responsibility and the duty to carry it responsibly.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is I'm not taking a liberal argument here. I'm taking a rational, legitimate argument here.
Yeah.
Just because you can carry a gun doesn't mean that you have to use it, and doesn't mean that you must use it. What I mean by that is situations are going to dictate where you can use your firearm.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in the street, the scenario we posed earlier, consider your target and consider its background. If you are accosted by an individual and you're in a crowd and there's dozens of people behind that person, you need to be damn sure, if you employ your firearm, that you are cognizant of every single round you fire and where they go. And you should consider, maybe I could draw my firearm, but I will only shoot at the last resort.
Yes.
Tactics come into play, and most people, the average, I would argue that the average American gun owner that carries a gun with them on a daily basis, whether they're doing it for work, or just doing it because they have the right to do it.
Yeah.
Average does not train with a firearm. And what I mean by train with that firearm, I mean, do you know how to use it? Do you know how to use it accurately? Do you know how to maintain it? Do you also know the tactics? Where are you? Because again, you can be in a deadly force scenario in your house, in your car, on the street, as you're walking. You know, do you know how to shoot from a moving vehicle? Do you know how to shoot from a stationary vehicle? Do you know how to shoot from your home? In your home? Do you know what kind of ammunition you're going to use when you're home? Maybe you live in an apartment. Do you want to use a pistol? Maybe you like there's different things that you have to consider and think, and all these decisions have to be made in seconds,
Right.
tops. And you can make these decisions if you actually train for these scenarios. And again,
Yes.
I would argue that average American that carries a gun does not train for this. And it was my experience as a deputy sheriff, that they didn't. Even cops, the average police officer does not train with their firearm as much as they should.
Wow.
And they wonder why the average American, or not average American, you wonder why a lot of critics, when there's an officer involved shooting, like, oh, they fired 30, 40 rounds and they only hit him twice. What the hell? That's why.
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons why.
Yes.
There's other reasons that come into play, and a lot of other people don't. This is another thing that people don't realize. You have to learn how to use force under duress in a stressful environment. Your hands are going to be shaking. You're going to have tunnel vision. Some of your senses aren't going to be working. Like my very first firefight that I got into in Iraq,
yeah,
I had a 50 caliber machine gun going off behind me. Didn't hear it at all. Could not hear it. I heard all of the incoming fire, but I couldn't hear any of the outgoing fire. I could have a conversation with the Marine to the left and the right of me. Obviously, I was yelling, but I can hear them clear as day.
Wow.
But I didn't hear anything else. So that also happens when you're in a high stress environment. If you have to use your firearm, you're going to have sensory deprivation. You're going to lose dexterity on your fingertips. Your heartbeat's going to go up. Your breathing's going to go up. You're going to be racing. You're sweating. You might be shaking as you hold gun. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Officers suffer from that too. And when they get into a shooting like that, they're quick. They're making this, bringing your gun up in seconds, trying to make this decision. And sometimes you're going to miss. It happens. It's going to happen. And it's not because they lack in training. It's just because that's what a high stress environment does. So you, as a responsible gun owner, need to take that into consideration in your training. Train in high stress environments. Have somebody behind you, like yelling at you, creating noises and stuff. Like that's this type of stuff you need to be doing. And I guarantee you, the average American is not doing that.
No, I highly doubt it. But I want to play a video. This took place about 2 weeks ago over in the state of Texas. And it shows a high stressful situation to where this father, saved his family from some crazy, just walked up. So here you go.
Tonight, new video shows the moment a father opens fire in an act police are calling self-defense.
Get the kids out of the way!
Watch as this man approaches a parked car and forces his way into the vehicle on Sunday. The driver tries to pull him away as a child runs out, fighting as the family scrambles for safety. Police say the driver, 2 women, and several children, even a baby, were in the car.
I was able to help get them inside so they weren't in the line of fire.
Police tell us the suspect, 30-year-old Jose Ramirez, crashed into 2 cars at this gas station and then tried to force his way into at least 4 others. He then crossed the street into this parking lot where he targeted that car with the family inside. Tatiana Starks watched from her store just feet away, jumping into action to help the kids.
Hats off goes to Dad, because Dad was able to stand his ground and protect his family.
The father fires 10 shots, killing the attacker.
We are looking at this as a self-defense case.
And Tom, police tell us they are not filing charges against the father at this time as the investigation continues. The people here who saw it all happen tell me they're just happy those kids are safe tonight. Tom.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News
All right,
app.
so I'm
or
ending
watch
that
live
right
on our
there,
YouTube.
but I heard a man say, "Get the kids out of the way," right before those shots happened. So I'm imagining that was the father who said that, and you could tell that he was
Yeah,
in
well,
the better
I'm not
interest
sure
and
who said
had
it, but
better training.
yes, you can also notice in the beginning of the clip, the dad had his gun out already in his right hand, and it was pointed away from the suspect in his car. He was cognizant of where his gun was in that space. He was cognizant
Yes.
of where the suspect was and where his family was. He was doing everything right. He didn't want to put his family, who was still in the car, he could have shot him right then and there at point blank range. A contact shot would have been great, but he didn't want to take that risk. Good on him. He got his family out of the way. He got everybody evacuated, and then he addressed the threat.
Yes.
Well done. But
Ex-
perfectly done. And again, he showed tremendous restraint because maybe he realized his strengths and weaknesses and realized, I don't want to take the chance of taking a contact shot right now with my family in the vicinity. I want a clear shot. I want to get him and him alone and my family out of there. Yeah. Perfect. Love it.
Yeah, and it's also helps out with the observer's psychological well-being as well.
Mm-hmm.
You-
Yeah, again, he considered his target, he considered his background.
Yeah.
And again, when I mentioned tactics, that's another that's a perfect example of, and I didn't mention this before. When you're carrying your firearm and you're with your family, you have to make a very difficult decision. Do you actually use your firearm? When I mean use, I'm not talking about deploying it. That's one. That's a threat of force, which is also considered deadly force on its own. You don't need to shoot. In some states, they consider that alone deadly force.
Yeah.
But if you're with your family, you have to ask yourself, am I in the position of power in the sense that my family's behind me and I'm going to do everything that I can to get them out of the way and out of the situation where it's only me and the suspect or suspects. And also, another point, if it's suspects,
Yeah.
and you're outnumbered, maybe consider not even taking your gun out at all, and just be the good witness, be the good victim. I know it's a massive blow to your pride and everything like that, but again, there are going to be some times where you need to not draw your gun because drawing your gun creates more problems than you can control. And again, that is arguably one of the toughest decisions, maybe even tougher than employing your gun, because there are times. I'll give you a personal example. When I was on patrol, I responded to there was a fight in the middle of the street. When I pulled up, I had a male Hispanic with a big old kitchen knife, about like this. It was huge, and he was fighting a male black on the ground.
Yeah.
I thought he was gonna kill the black dude. So I had the guy with a knife at gunpoint. I told him, drop the knife. Drop the knife. I told the black dude, hey, get out of here. Go. Get out of here. I cleared my background. I did everything I had to do. I had my gun on him, and I told him, if you come at me, I will shoot you. I will shoot you. And I gave him that warning like 3 or 4 times. I can't remember. And when I mentioned before, your fight or flight, symptoms, or not symptoms, your fight or flight,
Instincts, yeah.
fight or flight, thing. Well, I noticed that I was starting to tunnel vision, that I was starting to just isolate my view on the suspect in front of me and nowhere else. I was getting ready to shoot him.
Yeah.
Something happened where I saw something in his eyes. Noticed I don't think he's all there, and my vision started to open up, and I saw a female behind him, and she was screaming, he's autistic. He's autistic.
Oh,
He was
wow.
protecting me. I stopped.
Wow.
It turns out that black dude had a gun and he was threatening that dude's sister. So he was defending his sister. I found
Wow.
after the fact. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? I would have been completely legally certified. I would have been covered by department policy. I would have been totally covered if I had shot that dude.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I didn't, because I would have had to live with that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I would have had to live with the fact that I shot the wrong guy and I shot somebody with special needs, didn't understand what was going on.
Right.
Can you imagine
Wow.
the toll, the mental toll on somebody who would do that? So again, choosing not to employ your firearm, choosing not to shoot somebody sometimes is the toughest decision that you'll have to make.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll be rewarded because when you didn't, everybody survived. Everybody, lived to tell the story. And you know what? Maybe the suspect gets away. You're still alive. You didn't have to take somebody's life, and your family's safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a win.
And as the saying goes, you might have lost that battle, but you're still alive to win the war, so to speak.
Yeah. And again, you've got to make that choice.
Yeah.
And sometimes the choice, like say for example, if you're in a restaurant, right, and you're with your family, and some dude walks in and is holding the place up for robbery, and he's got a gun.
Yeah.
Are you going to engage that guy, or are you going to run the risk? Because now you're in a position where you're seated, you're with your family, so any move that you make is going to be seen by this guy. So before you can even get your gun out, before you can even get to a position where you can actually shoot something, he might have already shot and killed your wife or
Right.
one of your kids or both.
Yeah.
So again, restraint sometimes is the better choice.
Yeah.
Again, going back to that, what I said before, I strongly suspect that the average American does not take that into consideration. And I'm not saying this because I agree with the anti-gun and the liberals' argument this one. But again, that's something that you need to take into consideration. Just because you have the right to carry a gun and you are justified in taking some actions doesn't mean that you should. And I'm not saying that because I think there should be a law against it. What I'm saying is these are the things that you know and understand and train as a responsible gun owner.
Yeah. So sometimes the threat looks for that challenge and will go against that challenge.
Yeah. And you can look it up. There's actually statistics. I forget who did this study. It was years ago. I think it was like 10 or 15 years ago. On average, guns are used in a self-defensive scenario and not fired. No shots are fired well over 1 million times a year on average.
Wow.
So that does happen. That does happen. Like guns are drawn, but they're not used. They're not employed, or they're not fired.
Discharged. Yeah.
And that should be a well documented and well flaunted fact. And what I mean by flaunted, I'm going to throw it in people's faces like, look, this is how many people use their guns and they don't shoot anybody.
Yeah.
They just show their guns, that they have something, that they're in a position of a strong defense, and they can either stop the threat, they subdue the suspect, or the suspect gets scared, they run away, whatever. At the end of the day, no shots were fired, nobody got hurt, everybody lives for another day. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. And one important thing that I was taught when I was a kid, I've been around guns most of my life, is do not draw a loaded weapon on somebody unless you have the intent to use it.
Yes. One of the firearm safety rules: never point a weapon at anything you do not intend to destroy.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was one
And
thing that I was taught when I was
the prime reason why.
Yeah. And I was probably about 4 years old when I heard that the first time that I recall.
And I had a different experience. The first time I held a gun was when I was in boot camp.
Oh wow.
The very first time I actually shot a firearm was in boot camp.
Now
And
there was there was a number of years
children
where I
were-
wasn't around firearms. A number of years where I wasn't around firearms. And when I started hearing firearms when I went out practicing one time, I'm flinching. I'm like, not familiar with that sound.
Yeah. Yeah. It was My parents, my dad didn't have any guns. There was no guns growing up. Was never around guns. Not to say that my parents were anti-gun, just didn't have one. It wasn't a source of, it wasn't a topic of conversation at all. So yeah, like I said, my first time being exposed to firearms was in boot camp, and um, in boot camp, you actually get acquainted with, um, shooting the rifle and qualifying everything like that. But when you're pulling butts, when you're pulling targets and everything, like when you're at for people shooting at the targets, you actually get to experience incoming fire too, and the sound that
Ooh.
it makes, all that
Yeah.
stuff, and it's like you get that experience. So
Yeah.
you're right under. So where we were, it's called the pits. When you're pulling butts, pulling the top of your at the top, not roof, but that berm at the top, it's only 5 feet above your head, 5, 6 feet tops.
Yeah.
So the target's right up there, and you can see the rounds impacting the target. You can see the rounds impacting in the berm behind it, and you can hear the snap of the rounds breaking the sound barrier. It's so freaking loud. It is
Wow.
so loud. You get
Wow.
to experience that too.
Wow. Well, I had a different experience when I was younger. There's a few times where I was shot at by not just a BB gun, but by an actual firing black powder gun.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, I've been through a lot. I've been held up by knife point before too for $8.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
The things that people will do for hours.
Right.
Yeah,
But
you have to respect the fire. We can talk about this too. There needs to be a massive respect for what you employ in your hands. It's not a toy, it's a tool. Tools are dangerous. Circular saws, they're dangerous. They can kill people too. It's a tool.
yeah.
You have to respect the power that you hold in your hands and the power that it can project. It needs to be respected. It needs to be, you can admire it, you can love it, you can, all that thing. But at the end of the day, you have to respect the power that it can have.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even, when it comes to power tools, I believe one of the Lethal Weapon movies actually used a nail gun too, as a self-defense weapon. It was the second one. Was it? I don't know,
Was it
but
the
the
second
punchline,
I think
the little
when you're
joke
the
they made of
project-
it, nailed them.
Point is, you have a nail gun,
Yeah.
But no, yeah, you know what? You're right. It was the second one.
Okay.
It was the second one. Yeah, it's I mean, we can beat this nail in the head for a while, but it needs to be beaten. There is no. There needs to be a constant reminder of your firearm safety rules, a constant reminder of the tactics, constant reminder of, like, you need to train like you fight like you train. Learn that in the Marine Corps. You have to train, and training does not stop once you reach a certain level. You have to maintain. Fun fact: when you think of Delta, SEAL Team 6, Special Operations Forces, and everything like that, when you think of them training on the range, what do you think they do?
Okay. When they're
What's the
training on
first
the
thing that
range,
comes to your mind?
when they're training on the range,
Mhm.
that you said. So, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
What do you think they're doing? Like, what kind of training do you think they're doing? Like, CQB, or what kind of shooting do you think they do?
Well, automatically, I think they'd be learning, training on, maintaining their weapon, maintenance, cleaning,
Yeah.
oiling.
So what I mean by like actual live fire training.
Okay.
Live fire training. People tend to think like, oh, they're doing sexy shit. They're going in doing CQB, clearing houses, clearing rooms, doing some high speed stuff and everything like that.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. It's part of their operational upkeep. But fundamental marksmanship training is a core piece of their training. What I mean by that is they're standing up 25-yard line with a handgun, and they're doing dot torture, slow fire, bang, bang.
Okay.
Getting the fundamentals you can't forget the fundamentals, and they're doing that. And that's something that you know, I can attest to. You know, we didn't do that. We didn't do that. We did our live fire training was assaulting, round placement, employment, all that stuff. Now we were critically aware of marksmanship, and it was drilled in like you can't just spray and pray. We didn't do that. We were good at what we were shooting at. But again, though, like we didn't have the time that operators do to our budget, our shooting budget, like they get $10 million for their budget, we get 500 grand for our budget.
Wow.
We have to use it wisely.
Yeah.
So it's funny, like fun fact. So when I joined the Marine Corps, when I first hit the fleet, I was under Bill Clinton's last fiscal year.
Okay.
And when I hit the fleet, there's a range at 29 Palms called Range 400, and it's a range where an entire sized element can maneuver onto an objective. It's a couple miles long, about a mile wide. Everybody, like mortars, machine guns, rockets, rifles, they all fire, right? So when I first hit the fleet, I was a saw gunner. So I had a 249 saw. It's a belt-fed machine gun in 5.56.
Yeah.
Normally, the drum can hold 200 rounds, right?
Okay.
To run that range as a saw gunner, they gave me 100 rounds. That was it.
Wow.
That's all I got. And they said, make it last. Okay. All right. What do you want me to do?
Right.
So there was times at the range I was out of ammo. I was doing like what they taught us in boot camp, butter jam, like bang bang bang, like pretending, right?
Yeah.
And then I got transferred to the mortar section, and our first live fire range at the mortar section was at range 400, and in an ammo can for 60 millimeter mortar, which was what I had, every ammo can had 8 rounds, and we had 3 guns in one section. So 3 guns. We got 2 cans of ammo for each gun, so 16 rounds per mortar. That's not a lot. That's not a lot, considering that if you do like, I'm going to get into technical things, but like a call for fire, it's like, hey, 1 round and adjust. So you have to fire around. The forward observer has to walk you around the target, and then you fire for effect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can't really do that. We got good. We were the best mortar section in the 1st Marine Division, but we'd like to shoot more than 16 rounds. After 9/11, the very first range that we so when we got back from deployment from Okinawa, and we knew we were going into Iraq, we hit the ground running as far as training. The first range that we did was again range 400. Every single gun in our section for mortars, they got roughly 10 to 12 ammo cans per gun, and we got supplies. We fired I think each gun fired over 70 rounds. 70, 60 millimeter mortar rounds. That's a lot. That's a lot. And we did that repeatedly. So there was a massive difference in Bush budget, Clinton budget, and prep for war and peacetime.
Yeah. Huge differences. So speaking about being, prepared for things, can you use deadly force during a home invasion? So California has recently done some very dumb things again. And I want to say dumb because they're taking away from the rights of the individual person. So I want to play a short video here. About 3 minutes long here, Matt? I forget.
Roughly. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll go ahead and follow up on this after we watch this short video here.
There have been some home invasions of late where homeowners have defended themselves with lethal force. So what are the rules for all of us if someone's breaking in and we feel threatened? Let's bring in Sacramento County Sheriff Sergeant Edward Igo. Ed, good to have you here. So let me play this with you. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. There's an intruder downstairs in my house. What are my options to defend myself if I feel threatened?
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me. So realistically, in California, a homeowner can, within their residence, use deadly force. Now, if they have to fear essentially imminent threat of death or great bodily injury. And if someone breaks into their home forcibly, essentially there is a provision that says that their fear is reasonable at that point.
Would you want me to call 911 first? Should I also try to determine that this isn't some type of a prank? One of my friends, I don't know what they've got going on. What do I have to do to determine before I use lethal force that this is someone that definitely should not be in my house?
Absolutely. So we would definitely ask you to call 911 first. Let's try to get as many resources as we possibly can en route to that location to be able to help you out.
Okay, so do I have to make sure that this person is armed with something lethal too for me to use something lethal? Or is just the fact that he's in my house in the middle of the night, should I assume he's loaded and I'm not going to wait to what do you got, right? I'm not going to ask him.
Right. So each situation is going to be investigated based on the totality of the circumstances, essentially everything involved on that specific instance. So the fact of whether or not that person is armed or not is just one portion that would determine whether or not your use of force was lawful.
If they're in my house and they know they're not supposed to be, and it's 2 a.m., then they have to assume risk as well, right?
Absolutely.
That makes sense. So the Castle Doctrine allows a homeowner, so this is legal, to defend themselves if you feel immediate danger. So what is excessive force? What is the definition of that if I have to use that?
Well, again, there's going to be a lot of different situations. So you're going to have to determine that, first off, there is a threat, right? We would hate for some 80-year-old individual that maybe has dementia, thinks they're going into their home, right? That, if you used force against that person, that's an instance where that could be deemed excessive, right? So it's really hard to say black or white each specific instance. Another example of that would be if the person is now fleeing, they're running away, you're chasing them down the road, shooting at them, that could definitely be deemed excessive.
And as a general rule, if someone punches you, that is not excessive force for you to use lethal force, correct?
Well, again, so you have to understand the Castle Doctrine is just one portion that falls under California law for all self-defense. So whether that's an instance while you're out at Starbucks and someone punches you, you probably shouldn't be shooting them. If someone violently breaks into your home and strikes you, you might be able to establish that you are in imminent fear of death or great bodily injury.
They're in your house, they assume the risk. And you can't shoot someone in your yard.
Absolutely.
Got to be in the house.
This is inside your residence.
Ed Igo, Sacramento County Sheriff's Department. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much, sir.
So just as you were saying earlier here, Matt, that when you were on the force and you got that tunnel vision, you had to make this choice. And thank goodness that tunnel vision went away and you're able to see the sister there in the background. That's just, wow. Again, so you know your surroundings.
Yeah.
You know everything as far as the best of your knowledge.
Yeah, another thing, I'd like to demonstrate this because, I'm in my garage and I have my arsenal out here.
Yeah.
If you're going to carry a gun for self-defense, I highly encourage you to know all the tools that you can use with your firearm. Now, for example, if you're in your home, right, it's dark, everything like that. You're not going to have time to turn the lights, and it might put you at a tactical disadvantage if you turn on the lights.
Right.
So, here I have my firearm. One of my firearms has a light, has a holographic sight here too. So highly suggest, getting a light so you can illuminate your target, not illuminate yourself, and you can identify whether they are, you're going to have seconds to make this decision. And when I say seconds, I'm being generous. It's really like a second, maybe half a second in that kind of situation. You're going to, I understand as a law enforcement perspective, like, hey, call 911 first before you can do that. If you can, sure. Am I going to do that? Probably not, because I'm going to be the one who's going to be defending the family. I'm going to tell somebody else to call 911. I might not get to that until after I get the situation.
Yeah.
So again, you want to put yourself in advantage. Get a light on your gun.
Yes.
Maybe a laser too. I don't have a laser on this one, but I have a holographic sight on the top. But you need to use tools like this.
See, I don't have a light on mine, but I should. So
Well, it's not that you should. It's like, again,
Okay.
if you're going to carry something, it's probably a good idea. It's not mandatory. There's no
Right.
law saying you have to, but it would
Right.
really help you out in a tactical. It would put yourself in a tactical advantage. Maybe you don't have a light. Maybe you just put a laser on there, and
True.
go with that. You
Yeah.
want to be able to use all the tools available to you, and then train with them. Also, I have a light. I got a light on most of my guns.
Yeah.
Do you shoot at night? Do you shoot under
Right.
low light conditions? Do you shoot in
Yeah.
under no light conditions? Do that. Highly recommended. Number one, it's fun as hell. So you get that out of the way. But two, it serves a good functional purpose. Hey,
Yeah.
because most of your, like, I wouldn't say most, most of the times where you need to use your gun at home, it's going to be at night. When you're out, with your family, it's most likely going to be in the evening or at night.
Yeah.
You're not going to be all the time going to be in well illuminated areas and all that stuff. So you want to take these conditions into consideration when you go, because I have multiple pistols for different carry situations. You know what I mean? If I'm going to be out during the day, maybe I don't take that. Maybe I just take, I have a Glock 19 with no light on it. It's just like yours, iron sights, everything like that. I'm not worried about illumination. If I'm going to go out at night, I'm going to take something else. I'm not going to holster for that.
Yeah.
Also, too,
True.
and that goes with holsters.
Yes.
Where are you going to carry it on your body? Are you going to do appendix carry? Are you going to do back carry, hip carry? All that stuff like that. Me personally, I don't like open carry. I think it puts you at a disadvantage. I was always worried about somebody coming up from behind me and taking my gun. So I always be cognizant of where I am, all that stuff like that. So I don't recommend it, but I'm not against it. It's your right to do it. I don't care. From a tactical perspective, I don't like it. But again, though, if you're going to carry concealed, get a good holster, get a good gun to go with it. There's a lot of shitty holsters out there, and a lot of shitty guns out there too.
Right.
Big C320, sick P320. the guns that fire on themselves or fire by themselves. 320. I shot my balls off. But yeah, so know your gun, train with your gun, train with your equipment. That's another. The biggest thing is most ranges, or I'd say most indoor ranges, do not allow you to draw from the holster or anything like that.
Right.
Go to an indoor range where they let you draw from a holster, maybe shoot and move and everything like that. I have a membership to a private range where I can shoot whenever I want, 24/7. I can shoot from a holster on the move, everything like that. I can set up my own shooting, everything like that. Highly recommend that. Highly recommend it.
Well, again, when it comes to the open carry, there's one of two things. You can be a deterrent. Depends on how you put yourself off, your demeanor, your look, your stance, everything, or you could be a challenge to the threat that's coming. So
yeah,
you got to keep that in mind, especially when you're doing the open carry. If you're a petite little person, I do not suggest open carry.
No. You don't want to have an additional fight for your gun. Just keep it concealed.
Right. So is there anything more to add for tonight? I think we're coming close to the hour mark here.
I think at the end of the day, you and I and our viewers and our listeners, we support the Second Amendment. Yes. I beg of you, train as much as you possibly can. If you can afford is, a 1 day at the range, every couple months, that's better than nothing. Just train like your life depends on it, because it does.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Again, we are you folks are the ones that are able to broadcast and advertise. Facebook has done what we call a silencer. They're suppressing me. They are suppressing the heck out of me. So, go ahead and, share this where you can, because I was only able to share a little bit tonight. So again, follow on Tim Holliday TV. That's TimHolliday TV. No spaces. We're on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, Twitch TV, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So until this coming Thursday, ladies and gentlemen, have a great evening.